Szanowni Państwo, witamy po przerwie, a ponieważ ten panel zaczynamy w języku angielskim, to pozwólcie, że przełączę się na ten język. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We welcome you in the second half of the day where we are presenting BSS Tour with GBS Talks 4.0. Now 3 sessions. We start with HR topics. We will discuss from recruitment to motivation in the virtual teams. But about that in a second. First, 2 technical things. Please remember about using hashtag of BSS Tour when you are sharing any information in social media. And if you would like to ask any questions to our speakers, then please send them via email to bsstour@bsstour.com. Okay, so let me introduce you our moderator and excellent speakers. We have a great pleasure to have with us Przemek Berendt, who is the CEO of Talent Alpha, and his guests are Artur Skiba, the CEO of Antal International, Magdalena Tomicka, Senior HR Business Partner, Human Resources at Atos, Sylwia Strzeboński-Gancarczyk, CE HR Lead CPL Jobs, and Tomasz Leśniewski, the head of the GBS Clariant Center. Welcome. Przemek, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Victor. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. It's my privilege to lead our discussion today, and welcome to my panelists and speakers. We are going to dive into what I believe is a very timely topic, which is how do we run, the employee life cycle from recruiting the right people actually to having them on board and motivating them in this new reality in the virtual teams. Before we get into the discussion, the questions we prepared, wanted to share a couple of slides with the audience to draw the landscape and share with you some of the latest research that has been published in that space. If I could ask the studio to share the slides, please. And while we are waiting for that, we are going to try to tackle that problem from a couple of perspectives. On one hand, we will have HR agencies who are present here in the call. We will also have the HR directors coming from the BPO and GBS centers, as well as the technology providers. We have a few of them in the room as well. So without further ado, let me dive in and share with you some of the latest findings in this space. So I think it goes without argument that the future of work has arrived. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been discussing how the workforce is reshaping, and everyone was drawing the visions going out on 5 or 10 years. I think it's fair to say that a lot of that has happened literally within a few months. So the shift was really catalyzed because majority of the organizations, and as many as 60% of total staff out there in the workplace, is now remote, it's digital, it's distributed, and also skills oriented. And I believe actually, and Microsoft research confirms that a lot of that change is here to stay, because Microsoft predicts that there will be as many as 149 million technology jobs that will be created in the market by 2025, and 98 million out of that they predict only in software engineering. At the same time, 75% of companies struggle still with accessing tech talent, whereas the war for tech talent was really strong prior to the pandemic. As you will see throughout this discussion, we'll discuss a bit on what's happening with the IT specifically as well. It kind of stagnated for a while, but now many of us can actually sense that it's back to the game, and the competition for technology skills is going to be even more fierce than it was in the past. At the same time, the environment around us, especially in the technology space, is shifting so rapidly that so-called shelf life of a skill is now shortened down to 3 years. So basically, every 3 years, the workforce will have to be reskilled in order to adapt to the continuously evolving marketplace. And yet another trend or aspect that we see here is that 32% of employees are actually planning already replacing their full-time employees with contingent workers, which would be yet another aspect of our discussion today. So the conclusion out of that, and Gartner confirms that in their latest report that they literally published, I think, last week, that flexibility is a must. Only very few HR leaders expect no impact of the pandemic when it comes to the efficiency and the way they are organized. The structure of the organization. Majority of them expect moderate or significant impact. So that tells you that out there in the boardrooms, there's a lot of discussion on how and in what way organizations should adjust to thriving or surviving in this new reality. So the top HR priorities for 2021, again, basing on the same research coming from Gartner, is that 68% of organizations actually predict that they need to build critical skills and competencies to thrive in this new reality. On the back of that, 44% are reviewing and looking into their current and future leadership bench, and only 32% of them actually keeps thinking about the future of work. I wonder whether it's because the future already arrived or they are busy with looking to other aspects of the business, but the future of work discussion still persists only among 1/3 of the surveyed audience. What is becoming and getting to the top 5 list when it comes to the priority is employees' experience, especially now in the time where we don't get to see our workforce on a daily basis, and a lot of our interactions are filtered through the channel of video and voice. The employee experience is becoming extremely tricky. Because the remote work also is changing and transforming the way people collaborate or cooperate with one another. It has been proven that we spend as much as 3 times less together with our people than we did before. Again, our actions are more kind of project or task driven, and we are focused on pursuing specific goals within the given context of a video meeting or that you are attending. And the entire kind of environment and sometimes very subtle interactions within people where we can pick up signals on how well they are doing, whether they feel motivated, are basically vanishing, which is also creating an opportunity and the need for implementing new HR tools within the HR landscape to can address some of these challenges. One of the interesting concepts that we came across in our research is that the function of the office itself is going to change. Whether it was a place where everyone arrives to conduct the work, it will now become a place where command and control is happening. It will become a training center, right? So you'd be rather showing that up to figure out where the organization is moving next, get your crew of people off map, get trained, be equipped with the right skills to get the job done, but then most of the work would be conducted remotely. So the function of the office is about to shift as well. And yet another interesting perspective is that many of the organizations actually didn't have enough time or focus to think on how the world of their employees is shifting. 79% of the surveyed audience in the latest HP report on the workforce evolution didn't get any guidance from their employees on how to work remotely in an effective way. As many as 45% of them, they actually don't have the right supplies or access to the right equipment to do their job properly, and they don't have any communication guidelines. What is more important, I think that was kind of the key outcome out of this study for me, was that the companies also didn't think on how to retrain and keep building people in this new reality. So the workforce is taking things into their hands. Many of the people are acquiring new skills, but they do it outside of the work context. And as many as 1/3 of the total workforce is actually assuming that they will be able to build their own businesses based on the skills that they are now acquiring without companies not doing that. So without further ado, I wanted to open that to the discussion with my speakers and my panelists and dive into some of these aspects that I touched in this presentation. So if we could bring up all of the panelists to the screen. I wanted to start with an open question. So what's your initial reaction? Like when you look at all of these stats, what do you take out of that? Magda.
So you touch the point whether the change is coming or it already came, right? So I think that it really depends on the area, but right now, due to the pandemic situation, all of these changes that we've been observing on the market, a part of them have been strengthened, and especially the digitalization due to the remote work, and also all of the processes that had to be redesigned into the remote work are actually in fact in life, especially within HR, that might be a challenge, while the other areas of the change on the market, depending on the sector, might be a bit frozen due to the pandemic, right? But in general, I fully agree with what you have presented, and this is what we can observe at Atos on our board worldwide, not only in the company.
So in other words, from what I hear you saying, is part of the market froze and they're trying to figure out what all of that means to them. Other parts of the market basically are getting catalyzed and they are experiencing unprecedented growth. Interesting. And Sylvia, how does this look from your end? Do you see some of these trends in your work?
Yeah, definitely we could have observed them in the last 6 to 8 months, and the perception of the recruitment processes and people management changed significantly in a lot of organizations. And even from our side in CPL, we got a news across sea that there will be a lockdown introduced on Wednesday, and on Friday we had all the teams basically working remotely. So the more flexible the organization was before the pandemic, I think it's easier for them right now to adjust, and they are right now more in the settle down mode. And the one which haven't been previously that much flexible might be struggling right now in the current market, because it really requires instant decision-making processes and decision-making, and also instant activities from their perspective as well to adjust to the changing environment. So definitely it's visible from our side.
Thank you. And Tomek, what's your take on all of this?
It's some I would say recent trends, as you just described. From my perspective, they are quite for a while with us already. Yeah? So I'm working in the industry since 15 years. And since beginning, I would say I could observe that there is more and more expectation from our employees in the industry, the service industry, to be more flexible when it comes to various solutions being offered and used to run the business. And I think that nowadays the situation with pandemic is just a catalyst to accelerate some changes. Question how long they're going to stay with us, it's a different story.
Very interesting. And from Artur, from the Antal perspective, do you see some of these macro trends and mini trends happening with your clients?
Well, yeah, I would say that generally the recruitment world is probably next to the IT world, is one of the most technology advanced, and it's the sector where it's quite easy to switch to home work. Because if you have good recruiters, you get mature people. It doesn't really matter whether they work whether they work from home or they work from the office. From the business efficiency point of view, I'm not talking about human point of view right now, because I do believe that we need a direct contact with each other. On the other hand, I would say that recruitment was probably never that effective as it can be now, because candidates, they do not have to travel to interview. Neither consultants have to travel to do the interview. So within 2 hours, you can do 3-4 good interviews for even for senior positions. And another very simple reason why it's better to be interviewed via tools like Zoom or Teams is that at least we can see each other's face. When in a direct meeting those days, not necessarily. Which is from the efficiency of interview, those characteristics of the faces is also quite important. So I do believe that in longer term, we keep doing interviews. Recruiters will keep doing interviews using the technology solutions, even like in 2 years. This will stay with us. We will probably come back to the face-to-face interviews for some very crucial positions, but this will stay with us. This will stay with us probably forever. So the train started its way, and probably most of us already are on the train.
I do agree, in fact, of that. So if we dive into the recruitment process or the employee or candidate employee life cycle, so it starts with actually defining the jobs and identifying the skills required for the role. So an open question to all of you. First of all, do you believe that the skills that will be continue to hire for are going to be different from the skills that we were hiring for before? Like, do you see that already happening in your businesses, that the job descriptions are now requiring slightly different composition of skills, or maybe the priority of the skills or the focus of where the skills, the strengths should be is different than it was before?
So maybe from my end, representing the IT company, so I do not see a lot of the changes in terms of the job requirement from the technology point of view, right? So we've been always trying to anticipate the market, so the current situation is not influencing too much that scales, the pandemic effect, right? It's rather the evolution of the IT market and the technology effect, which is always in line with the demands that we are receiving for the skill set of the people that we are hiring. What's important is that from the HR point of view, when we are doing the screening of the candidates, soft skills are very important. They have always been, but right now it's a bit a different proportion of that, right? So we need to be conscious of the flexibility of the people, because we can see how disrupted the world is right now. So people need to present the kind of ability to adapt to those changes that sometimes we cannot oversee, right? And we cannot predict. So this requires to be flexible for the company and at the end for our employees. So in this changing, disrupted environment, I would say that it is important not to lose the attention on these HR aspects while we are looking for the candidates and approaching to our company, especially that in a remote version of the interviews, it's a bit more difficult to get the connection which is available face to face. Once you can really see and maybe test a little bit better a kind of culture fit, right? So this also is bringing the attention to the recruiter at the end, or to the manager who is looking for the new person to the team.
So what I hear from you is that the demand for kind of hard skills, technical skills remains constant, and the landscape is continuously evolving. But on the soft skills side, there are some of them that are now becoming critical. I think you've mentioned adaptability, flexibility, fit to the culture. Any best practices from you on how to test, identify, validate these competencies in those remote processes, virtual processes?
Mm-hmm. So actually, we have the virtual process of the recruitment since over a year already, because we switched a bit the modes of recruitment last year. What is important from my end is to involve into the recruitment process, so to the interview process, different representatives, right? So we need to have the engineer representing the technology part. It's worth to have the manager, because he knows the better what are the key competencies from the team structure and team culture, and also the HR representative, because it might be a trend within HR that the soft part is a little bit lost within all of these discussions, especially run by the engineers and pure technical people. So it's important to connect different people presenting different areas like technology, management, and the HR.
Thank you. And Sylvia, what about from your side? Do you see any of these skills kind of popping up on the radar? And do you have any tricks or tips on how to identify and validate them in the virtual process?
Definitely, we have observed both actually internally and externally that people and managers are interested more in the soft skills area. Obviously, like the core competencies are still required, but the interest is there. Like previously, obviously, it was a part of the screening process, but right now, more and more often, it comes back from the clients even that they are looking for solutions related to testing soft skills and supporting them in testing these soft skills. So, for example, one of the services which we are having in CPL and we are offering is support of psychometric testing because we have introduced it internally in CPL previously 2 years ago, and it was a huge success for us. So for crucial positions, we have been always assessing people on psychometric testing, and it was very huge help for us in terms of assessing skill set, which isn't that easily assessed virtually.
Any particular traits you are testing for and that you're recommending your clients to test for when it comes to the psychometrics?
Usually it's based on the competency model they would like to have. So we are assessing what kind of competencies they are looking for. Like ourselves as CPL, we are using Lumina Learning because they are the ones which are the most innovative one right now. And they are based on 24 qualities. So out of these 24 qualities, you can double check which of one you are interested the most as the HR professional. And based on that, you can assess out of these 24 qualities, which one you are actually focusing on when doing the pre-screening and which would be matching your company. So this is pretty broad testing, basically, which is giving answers to how people will be behaving. And what's also nice about Lumina particularly is that it is showing also over extended persona. So it's like the situation when someone is under stress. So in this current situation, it is giving us a lot of insight on how people are also behaving in current situation, because this is not the normal state of behaviors sometimes in some cases. So it gives you better understanding on how to proceed with different profiles with whom you are cooperating or you want to cooperate. So it speeds up a little bit the decision-making process as well from our side.
And from your experience, when it comes to the candidate willingness to actually conduct these tests, how open is the workforce to actually get psychometric measurements done to them?
You know what? We are giving them tests back for free. So if the person is actually receiving an added value and are getting their full profile out of it, they are eager to do that, because like the worst thing you can do is to do the testing and don't share outcome with the person, just make a decision out of that. So that obviously is not a good practice. But if you are actually giving back the result to the person who participated in the test, most of the candidates are very happy about it because they learn something afterwards about their profiles in themselves. And also in some cases, for example, it helped us to share feedback why one person was chosen and the other one wasn't, because you can easily compare what kind of qualities you are looking for, and people are basically getting exact result and exact answer to their questions. So from this perspective, it works pretty well.
Very interesting. So kind of diving into the toolkit in the recruitment, Tomek, have you seen anything, or do you guys have anything in the portfolio that you would be using, such as psychometrics or games, or using AI in video interviews?
It's of course we're using this as well, yeah. So it's apparently because of the setup we have in Clariant. It's from Poland. We're providing services also to Latin America. And because of the market, we need some specific languages and capabilities. That's why we very often recruit locally in Brazil, Mexico, and other countries over there. So, of course, to support the process, very often we need to do this remotely. And we're doing this since 5 years already. How successful we are, it depends, I would say. It's even if we use a lot of different systems to support a candidate assessment, at the end of the day, we are not looking for individuals to work individually. In Clariant, we usually work as a part of the team. You work as a part of the team, which means somehow you have to fit the culture of the organization. In the same time, you need to be able to cooperate effectively with other colleagues, because we're looking for synergies because of the team concept. And only if you are, I would say, having appropriate skill set, plus you are able to effectively collaborate with others, then the team is successful at the end of the day. So this is something we try to, of course, somehow do as best as we can. And sometimes.
So candidate organizational fit. This is interesting. So how do we test for that?
It's we in Clarion we believe in number of values. And if candidates are trying to, I would say, join us, are not believing in them at all, cannot accept, then we do not believe that this, I would say, journey can last forever. Yeah. So then, of course, we try to, I would say, select someone else who is fitting our culture better.
And Arthur, from your perspective, any new cool tools you are using in your toolkit to select the right candidates for the clients?
Yeah, so of course, I mean, from the soft skills point of view, I would mention that the very important characteristic that every employer is looking for since the pandemic started is the ability to self-motivate, to wake up in the morning and do the job. So this is what all the employers are focusing on, and tools that are able to measure that, how much any candidate is able to self-motivate. Another thing I want to mention is that let's do remember that those difficult times, those pandemic times, it's not only about the technology and artificial intelligence, but it's only about human beings, and it's biggest management test ever for the managers, because only the teams, we've seen already many teams that have failed since the pandemic started, and many of them they succeed because the managers they are able to motivate the teams. They are able, despite those difficulties, they are able to impact the people, and via building the right relation with the people. Yeah, those days we talk about when we have meetings with our people. We talk not only about the goals, and but we also sometimes need to talk about our difficulties in our private life, about the families and so on. So this is a real test how to balance between one and the other. It's a real test for the managers. When it comes to the technology solutions, we have ourselves as Antal organization, we have implemented a platform, an IT platform called REX, REX, via which we are able to recruit for pretty much every country in the Europe, and via which we actually are employing recruiters in every country in the Europe. So this is like crowd staffing platform that we have set up, which actually in the right time. We have started this before the pandemic started, but it started booming after the pandemic started. So this is just an example of a solution that shows that if you have the right solution for the right times, you can still do well and do the business. Doesn't matter where you're based and where your clients and your clients' needs are based.
Interesting. So when we look at the technology, the recruitment process, we touch on some of the solutions, measuring psychometrics. What about AI? Do you leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning in any of your recruitment processes, kind of top of the funnel activities? Can you give us some examples? Anyone?
No, I mean, a part of the example that I just mentioned, which is not a pure AI solution, it's more a crowd-staffing solution. That we don't have much practice in this as for now.
So looking into the market, there are some of the solutions, for example, like HireView, that claim that they can distinguish some of the psychometric characteristics out of the analyzing the video image. Do you believe this works? Have you heard any experience with that, or do you know anyone who actually claims that it?
I was personally approached. Antal, as an organization, was approached by a company who offers such a solution that by some extra appliance you can also check the candidate's face, whether he is lying or she is lying, answering the question or not. So there are solutions like that on the market already. I don't know how reliable they are, to be honest. I don't have a practice in this yet, but it's interesting times that those solutions are already entering the market.
Yeah, I think there are two aspects of it. One is, how ethical is it to actually test some of that? Yeah. And the other one, is it actually working? Like from the science point of view, is it snake oil or it's actually some technology that works? Magda, I think you have a comment on that.
It's carrying a bit as well, yeah.
Indeed, right. So, in my opinion, if we are starting the journey with a candidate from having really a limited trust, it's not a good start, right? So, the trust at the very beginning is the key. Actually, it creates the further collaboration. So, I wouldn't use even if the company would offer me that for, I don't know, testing free phase. So I wouldn't use it. It's from the ethical point of view really a tricky point for me.
I think there's also one more aspect. It's in Clarion we believe in appreciation, and for us, every person who is applying for the position in the organization, we would like to also appreciate. So we would like to spend the time with this person, provide also feedback at the end of the day that any experience with organization is also a positive experience for the candidate. And using all this artificial intelligence is just, I would say, getting rid of all the humanity in the process, and this appreciation in the process. So that's why we believe that at this point of time we are not even, I would say, willing to try to apply this.
This is interesting. So you're touching on candidate experience and how important the human touch is in the process. So how can you scale the candidate experience so it feels like it's human touch? Can you scale it at all? Do you think you can scale it? So it's personal. How can we leverage technology, in other words, to scale and to build a bigger event pipeline and touch more people in the process, while making sure they feel like it is really focused on them and gives them some extra value. I think to Sylvia's point where they said that they are sharing some feedback with the candidates. Do you guys believe this can be scaled?
I think that we should take the point from the two aspects, right? So what Tomek is referring to, for me, it's more the selection process when really the human aspect is important. So we are going into the direct interaction with the candidate. We are asking the questions, receiving the answer, no matter what methods we are using. But the scale effect and all of this technology and artificial intelligence solutions might be very useful is the sourcing part when we are looking for a talent pool, right? So here it's very important, and I think that's the standard on the market, to use different technology aspects to be able to approach wider scale of the candidates, and especially it is important for the companies that are driving the recruitment process on a big scale in a very dynamic way, right? So I would split those two areas, that's between the sourcing and selection of the candidates, right?
All right. Okay. So now you found the right person. We believe they have the right skills for the job, and you're bringing them into the organization. How do you onboard someone in this virtual world where they never show up to the office for the first few months of their work or ever? Any practices, Sylvia?
From my side, because we have been working in a matrix environment for a period of time as an HR function, the good plan is a must. So the person must be presented with the plan, what will be happening, and the sessions which are delivered by different people from different parts of organization. So they are exposed to as many colleagues as possible as well, obviously delivering appropriate topics related to the ones in which they are subject matter experts. But this is one of the key factors to ensure successful onboarding, that the person is feeling taken care of and she or he is feeling connected with the working environment. The more people are involved in the training, like initial one, the better, because the connection is bigger. And obviously when the situation is like that, that we cannot meet face to face, very clear objectives and plan, and when something is happening, it's very important as well. So it's not enough to just give the computer and say, okay, your colleague will explain you how the processes work. This person has to be given with the very clear instructions on what they can be expecting on different days, and to have them taken care of by the rest of the team, basically. And what's even more important is that the manager who's responsible, or leader who's responsible for this person, is driving this. So the responsibility should be on the direct supervisor to ensure that all of these particular modules are happening. Because like from our side as an HR function, we can give them the tools, but we cannot like enforce the process. So it's also important to have a buy-in of the management to implement the processes properly. And it's important to skill them up to understand that the good onboarding is actually has very big impact on the whole success and retention process of the employee and the organization.
Mm-hmm. Are there any tools or tips, tricks, hacks you would recommend for this part of the employee life cycle? Do you see any new things appearing on the market that you would recommend?
Well, I didn't see anything like revolutionary right now at this moment in time. Probably the online platforms. I know that they haven't been, like a lot of organizations have been using them, like online learning platforms, as the ones where they put some boring soft skills training and people are just trying to go through it. But if the learning platform is set up in a proper way, then it can be a very big added value to the team. So you can have it shifted in a way that a session is supposed to be delivered through the platform, and afterwards, for example, the new person who's onboarded has a follow-up session with the person responsible for this topic to discuss how it works in practice. So this kind of tools can be used pretty nicely, probably, if they are set up correctly, basically, in the business.
Tomek, any hints from your side, especially like how do you make sure you have this human touch in the onboarding process? How do you make one feel as part of the team if they never came to your office?
It's of course that was kind of quite a challenge for us, and of course you can easily, I would say, make all these documents which are being used for the onboarding process somehow in the virtual reality, including also videos and some other, I would say, stories being prepared in the virtual form, which are supporting onboarding process. However, they are they're supporting mainly knowledge onboarding process. And this is, from our perspective, only 20 to 30% of the overall progress of onboarding you can make doing this. So, what's more critical to be successful when it comes to onboarding process is to work hand in hand with newcomer. And we're trying to, of course, assign individual bodies and also individually responsible manager to assure successful onboarding of candidate. I think what also was discussed before, what kind of competencies are very much, I would say, critical today. Of course, we believe that nowadays this independence to develop your skill set on your own, this is getting more and more important. And of course, we cannot also, or we can hardly train somebody in the virtual reality from very, very scratch. So naturally, we prefer candidates with some experience already, and we're trying to teach them some company-specific things rather than to provide them full-fledged training shortly after graduation.
So at some point, the talent pool of experienced people on the market is going to run out. So, can you guys see any other sources of talent? Like, do you see talent coming, from other countries? Is now the work is remote, or do you see people actually reskilling or upskilling into new jobs from other kind of career paths?
Yeah, I think that's the crucial point. Actually, we live in the times where the border in many industries, physical borders, they stop existing anymore. So one of our recent inquiry is from a US company who was to start completely new also outsourcing center. It's a kind of investment fund investing in the real estates all over the world, and they want to set up accounting center in Poland, which will be serving all the countries all over the world they exist in, mainly in US. However, they don't care where the guys would be sitting. They don't even expect to have a physical office. They want people to be sitting at home through all Poland, and they will be investing in some IT solution to support that. However, they don't plan to have an office at all.
Wow, interesting. So how do you motivate, my last question, I think before I pass it back to Victor, my last question is, how do you motivate a remote team like that? You're building basically a distributed organization, and the client recruits hundreds of people across Poland. Everybody sits at home. They went through the recruitment process, we onboarded them, then as a manager, how the heck do you make sure they perform, they are motivated, and they are actually healthy, both physically and mentally, because being stuck at home can also have a mental impact. Any hints around that?
Yeah, I think the most important is to have the right people for that, because let's remember not many people can do the job, which is remote job on permanent basis. Most of us still they need a direct contact from time to time, and not many as some of the IT guys that they are okay with that, that they can do remotely on a permanent basis. So this is the most important thing, to hire the right people. And then it's again back to the management style, to setting up the right process, to setting up the right KPIs and the right monitoring kind of way of the KPIs.
Okay, Victor, over to you.
Thank you very much. I must say that I was listening to all of your comments, and they were just brilliant, to be honest. I've got one reflection. You mentioned AI, yeah, but AI from one side, from the side of the employers. But do you think that we might experience a situation that, for example, with AI, employees use some kind of avatars to somehow present themselves to their employers, not necessarily showing their real faces? So actually messing around with the AI which is in use by the businesses. Przemek, how do you think? That's
a very dark scenario, but looking where, for example, deepfake technology is taking us, I can envision people faking video interviews with that technology, right? And also at some point, someone cracking how the AI algorithm works and making sure that they hit the right keywords so they get to the next stage of the funnel. However, we always have this human factor in it, right? And at some point, that recording of this video interview would be verified by someone, a physical person. I think that's where the clash will start, but it's a fascinating concept. I'm pretty sure someone will be trying to hack it.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something interesting. I have two questions for you. They arrived during today's event. I will ask them both together, and if you could just give your answers. First of them is actually about the health and safety trainings. How actually they are now being run for the remote or the virtual employees? Are they run? Is the video enough to actually go through that? And the second one is, do employees face already the effects of social separation from their teams? So two completely different questions. If any of you could take that, that would be great.
I make comments on the second one in terms of the social separation. So indeed, as it was already mentioned, not too many of us are supposed to work in a remote way for the really long perspective, right? So the social effect is very important, and we paid a lot of the attention to that to implement the virtual social moments and to have really that connection. But during the summer period, when all of the restrictions on the governmental side have been a little bit smaller, so we allowed people to come to the office. So we also observed that people are really waiting for this moment, right? And are getting into the connection to see each other. And it's really important if you don't have such a possibility to meet in the office because the pandemic effect is not allowing us to, then all of the social moments are really important. And as Sylvia mentioned, the leadership role here is key, right? Because we as the HR, we can construct on the organizational side a lot of the initiatives, like showing your homework, workplace, share your kids, share your pets, and so on. But it won't actually cover the direct contact with your leader and with your whole team.
Mm-hmm. I can try to reply the first question about health and safety trainings. Of course, no, we deliver standard trainings same as we did in the past. What is, I would say, a bit more tricky for us is that today there is a little regulation on the work from home from the legislative perspective. And this is creating some difficulties for us how to address this point in the right way. So what we are doing, we're trying to somehow put internal regulations of work from home. So we have kind of policies, and we're trying to define a number of different tools people are using working from home. And we're training them how to, I would say, mitigate potential risks of usage, and that's it. This is what we can do for them.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really sorry to say that, but we need to finish today's very interesting talk. So Przemek, Tomasz, Artur, Sylwia, Magda, thank you very much for all of your insights. Przemek started the whole meeting with presenting the results out of the report which Talent Alpha has prepared recently. This report is available on outsourcing portal pages and also is delivered to all Progressio Club members. So we do care a lot with sharing this kind of information. Guys, thank you very much and see you soon. Dziękujemy serdecznie za udział w tym panelu i teraz spotykamy się o godzinie 15.